track record with IRS, or as Brett Swarts would say, that are batting 1,000. And this is one of them. And that is how they bat 1,000, meaning that every time that the IRS has come and tested them, so to speak, or done a cursory review or done a deep dive audit, that they've come out with 0 findings and 0 changes, which is incredibly important for our clients.
Yeah. So when I drop that, okay, hey, there's 0 changes, 0 findings on this structure, right? And my CPA's never heard about it. And I say, okay, well, when's the last time that your IRS audit was 0 changes, 0 findings, if you've had one, right? And they kind of look and they're like, okay, well, there's some legs to that. What other legs are there, and what other precedences are there for this trust to have such legitimacy? So
I think another strength to support this, one of the items that we like to provide our clients is oftentimes a legal opinion letter. You can have that's provided by the Campbell Law Firm as well, or you can go and get your own legal opinion letter from your own legal counsel, which would be a third party and independent legal counsel. A legal opinion letter is just somebody else doing a deep dive on your behalf who has no ulterior motive and no ulterior allegiances outside of representing you as the client. And they can look into your very specific scenario and situation, which might be different from everybody else's, and can give you an opinion whether or not what you hope to accomplish can be accomplished through this strategy. We recently had a client that did that. And that's not something that we can publicly share because that was something that our client paid for, right? You may request it from Campbell Law Firm directly. They have one that they've done for their other clients. But this is something that oftentimes for individuals that are having a sizable enough transaction, it warrants, and let's not call it, it's not literally insurance, but it's almost like getting assurance that another pair of eyes independently has looked at it in an unbiased way and found or deemed it to be valid for your case. So that is something that can be done. You can get a legal opinion letter from private counsel, or you can read other legal opinion letters that have been issued in the past. I think, Pierce, another thing that's incredibly important is the ability to see what due diligence other people have done. We heard last week a couple of weeks ago, we had David Young here on the call. And David Young and his team, him being not just a financial advisor, but a money manager, which is a different thing, right? And one of the most prestigious money managers in the nation, he and his legal team spent vast amounts of money over a 2-year period. And they were able to find and discover that this was good for them. And they even decided to join part of the inner council of what we have here with the DST, simply because not only did they find that it would be a good thing for him and his business sell, which was a very substantial and large sell, substantial and large enough that he paid one of the most prestigious law firms, tax law firms in the country, to go and review it for 2 years before they pulled the trigger, sold their business, and utilized the Deferred Sales Trust to do that. So learning how other people are doing it and how it fit for them isn't always an exact fit for you and your business or your home or your property or whatever it is that you're selling, but it's helpful to understand how what worked for them may relate to what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. With that, I want to open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions?
Shane, I know you have a question.
My question is, one of the things we talked about using once you've moved the money into a deferred sales trust is you usually structure that around a note that promises a certain amount to the client. Now, if you take those investments and you turn around and invest those funds into another business, how can we still continue to promise that the note holder those same returns?
So let me paint the picture a little bit more so that we can fill in some of the dots and just add some of the more puzzle pieces, right? So that we can catch an image and maybe fit the rest together for you. So Shane has a client that has an existing deferred sales trust. And the client maybe has $1 million in the trust. And this particular client may be interested. He has not been presented the idea before. I've been investing in non-marketable securities. We've discussed the liquidity requirement of 20% of the promissory note or the original asset that was moved into the trust. We've discussed that liquidity requirement. So he must maintain at least 20% marketable securities or other cash or cash equivalent or liquid assets, right? Now, should he decide to go buy some real estate, might want to use Rebecca here, or might want to use Pierce or Brett Swarts or anybody else, right, to go buy some real estate. And that's going to kind of lock up part of what was otherwise invested in marketable securities. Shane's question is, hey, if he's got an 8% promissory note, what is the expectation for the client for that 8% promissory note of being able to invest in the market right now with the market doing the loop-de-loops that it's doing, right? And provide or be able to honor that payment. Now, I guess one qualifying question right now, Shane, is the client currently taking the interest income on that promissory note?
They will be taking it in another month or two.
Okay, so in another month or two, they're going to kind of retire. They're going to be taking income out, right? Okay,
correct.
Very good. Now, as we understand, think of this from a portfolio standpoint, Shane. We have a lot of different assets here in this pie, and right now we've got it all in marketable securities, but we're going to change some out. Let's say we go buy some interest in another business, we go buy some real estate, we go buy some things that are not liquid, right? And then we maintain the 20%. He can still be taking money out based on that 20% piece, regardless if that 20% piece is producing enough gains, appreciation, dividends, interest payments, or other forms of dividends, something like that, right? Qualified, non-qualified. So those are various types of ways that 20% can grow. And regardless if it grows enough to provide that 8% on the entire portfolio, you can take it from that piece. Okay. So it doesn't need to, that small little piece alone doesn't need to produce that 8% of the entire portfolio. That's why it has to be maintained liquid, so that we could take from the original portion that was moved in plus any of the gains to provide that. Now, the idea and the expectation is that some of these other hard assets that might not be liquid are also growing. And if it's like rental properties, they're providing income. There's a lot of different things and moving parts that might replenish that 20% that might decrease if we're paying out on the promissory note.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying. So we use the cash value as kind of a buffer until the other assets start producing. And
oftentimes that's exactly how I tell clients. It's your 20% is a buffer. Essentially, we've got like 2.5 years, if we're using the 8% promissory note, we've got like 2.5 years of promissory note sitting aside so that we can prove to the IRS at any given time we can make that 1 year promissory note. So it's a conservative standpoint should other assets not be able to be liquidated for a couple of years.
Very
now,
cool.
as a financial advisor and as a trustee, the goal here is to be able to manage those other assets so that maybe because it's multifamily, whatever, there's other income, and it's not just the appreciation that we're looking for you have to build an investment plan around your client's goals and objectives and make sure that it's suitable and that all of these things fit together. Your client who's hoping to retire and sell off into the sunset, though he might have interests in a lot of different types of investments, we need to ensure that we're able to meet his income goals at the same time.
Hey, Jake, as a question kind of correlated to that, say in the situation, Jake or Shane's client invests in a business with the 80%, so $800,000 goes into a business. It's a startup, whatever it is, the business goes bankrupt. How does that work with the promissory note stating that the trust owes $1 million to Shane's client, and then now the trust only has the $200,000 because this business went bankrupt? How does that work?
Think of the business trust as a business itself, and that would be a loss.
Okay, so it would just flow through as a loss, basically?
That'd be a substantial loss, and we could flow that through, yes.
Okay, awesome.
Now, again, there's a little bit of magic here in the sense that you have some control over timing, and you can time it. Obviously, you can carry losses forward, right? But you can also have a little control over the timing should he have another year that he has a lot of gains.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, you need to be careful from an investment advisor standpoint and make sure that investments are suitable. If we're talking, if $1 million and the DST represents a large portion of his net worth, then you need to be very careful how much you put into alternative investments. Typical industry recommendation is between 10 and 30% maximum. Now, if this $1 million only represents a part or a small piece of his overall net worth, because he has a lot of other assets everywhere else, then it would be possibly suitable and okay to take $800,000 and put it into a business that could, as you mentioned, have the potential to go out of business.
Perfect. Yeah, a little bit extreme example, but awesome. One more question for you. So in this situation, we could use that exact same example. He doesn't want to do start a business, whatever. He wants to reinvest into real estate. What's the best practice for optimizing that investment through the trust? Do you partner it with the individual and a joint ownership? And then how does the rental income potentially flow as well as depreciation flow to the individual and the trust?
So I can answer that, but I actually want to ask from the group here today, do we have anyone present that has already used the Deferred Sales Trust in a joint venture relationship to invest in real estate? Rebecca, have you? Not yet.
Not yet.
Soon. All right. Pierce, maybe you might be the best one to answer this question. How would the trust partner with a client to jump into a real estate project?
Yeah, so we would definitely be doing like a joint venture, most likely, depending upon, I think, a lot of the different situations that could arise. But a joint venture would be one of the best ways to do that. So you would basically just JV with your trust, and then from there, the trust would be able to put up a significant portion of the real estate loan amount or whatever it is, right? The funding for that asset. So
can I throw out a scenario for you, Pierce?
Yeah,
actually I'm thinking, so let's just talk good, better, and best.
Okay.
So can the trust invest in real estate? Absolutely. But would you have the trust by itself? You could, but you'd lose out on one of the most amazing tax benefits that all real estate people look for, right, Pierce?
yes.
What is that? Depreciation. Like literally a lot of people invest in real estate because of this huge incentive that they get to wipe away a whole bunch of passive income because of this phantom expense called depreciation, right? So you could take the trust, and the trust itself could buy a piece of real estate, but that's not as efficient. That's just good, because then the income goes back into the trust, right? What would be better is if it partnered with somebody else. So the trust as a natural person, because as a tax ID number, and let's say Mr. and Mrs. Client, they have social security numbers, they're taxable separately. They get together in a joint venture and they form perhaps a partnership LLC, and they go buy a property together. The trust puts in the down payment, and the LLC with that down payment and the partnership arrangement, they go and get a mortgage and they buy the property. And then, you can allocate based on partnership rules. You can allocate depreciation, you can allocate income, and that's better. Some people would say, well, I want to allocate all the income to the trust. I want to allocate all the depreciation to me personally. That's better, but you're getting a little extreme. And even in the partnership rules, we want to be conservative. So best practices, as you were asking, would be, hey, maybe let's analyze how much depreciation versus how much income we want to take personal. Okay. Well, we want to take all the depreciation, but maybe only so much income. Enough that we can wipe away all that income depending on how much income we expect to generate from that property. So this becomes more of an optimized scenario. Let's say that it's 80-20. So we're taking 80% of the revenue, 100% of the depreciation, and we're flowing 20% of the revenue back to the trust. Okay. Or, just however much we're able to offset with the depreciation, the passive income, or, we might flow more income back to the trust if we have other passive income that we also want the real estate to offset. Again, the best practice is to analyze the client's global situation and find the scenario that best fits and best supports them from a tax and investment standpoint. And we call that tax advantaged wealth management.
Yeah, absolutely. I I also just want to throw out there that there's a lot of different like options with this thing. And so, you know, you can customize it according to what's the best situation for you. And you can amend it as you're going. You can turn it on and off like a water faucet. So, you know, you could come to the point where it's like, look, I don't need any income, right? And we might, you know, look at it and say, we don't need to take distributions right now. We can hold that off and put all the income into the trust and let that compound, you know, or, hey, you know what? Like I do all of a sudden, like I got medical bills that popped up and I need to increase my distributions by, you know, X%. Like you can do that too. So it's one of the best things. And it's a huge, I get asked this a little bit, you know, the difference between like a charitable remainder trust and like a deferred sales trust, right? Like the charitable remainder trust is relatively flexible in the beginning, but once you set that thing, it's like pretty set in stone. It's really hard to amend that. I don't even think, is it even possible to amend a charitable remainder trust, Jake?
Under very rare circumstances, you can pull things apart. Incredibly difficult and usually very taxable.
Yeah. So that's one of the huge advantages to a deferred sales trust over something like a charitable remainder trust or you know, one of these other vehicles that don't suck. They have their own uses in their own rights, right? And we can absolutely leverage them and use them depending upon, you know, again, the client's unique situation, right? There might be a situation where a CRT is the best for them.
Well, and Pierce, I think the value of the team here and all the advisors here that are on this call
yes.
is that we can help optimize a client's situation by doing what's in their best interest. An example, had some clients in California, very charitably inclined, but also concerned about one of the charities they wanted to donate to, concerned about who the new leadership would be, and it won't be decided for about 2 years. So if they make a very substantial contribution now, or if they do it through the charitable remainder trust where they're contracted, where even though it's not going to contribute for like 10 years, but contractually it's going to go to this charity, right? So they're kind of locked in stone, even though they're not giving it today, it's going to go to this charity, but in 2 years, the leadership's going to change. So they were very concerned and they were trying to decide how much of their capital gains transaction they want to allocate to the DST or to this CRUT, a charitable remainder unilateral trust. And at the end of the day, their decision was, well, the CRUT is very inflexible. Once we do it, it's set in stone. We're not ready for about another 2 years, but our sales transaction is now. So they decided to utilize the deferred sales trust for everything rather than piecing out different pieces for different strategies. They're going to use the deferred sales trust for everything now. And in 2.5 years, when they understand who the new leadership of this charitable organization is going to be, they can then carve out from the deferred sales trust, because this is the more flexible tool. They can carve out a piece, take that distribution at the time would only be taxable, but then do the CRUT, which will essentially offset that tax. And so that is another magical thing about what you were saying earlier on, Pierce, is that and as well as David Young on the video that we just saw, right? The power of timing comes back into the hands of the client. It becomes a very flexible tool to where should they have certain goals and objectives, but the time is not today. This puts the power of timing back in their hands to where they can exercise and accomplish those goals at the timing that is most appropriate.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Thank you so much for talking a little bit about the charitable unilateral trust. Is that what you said? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so there are the two most common forms of charitable remainder trusts are the CRAT and the CRUT. The CRAT is a charitable remainder annuity trust, and the CRUT is a charitable remainder unilateral trust. Now, if like your goals are pretty in the near future and the age of the client is up there in years, a lot of times the annuity version is a little bit more substantial for them. And if the client's goals are to shift income to maybe their kids or something of that nature for a period of time, then the CRUT is usually utilized. Now, in both scenarios, you essentially are going to end up donating up to 70% or more of the overall asset to a charity. It's just all about controlling the time of it and getting the deduction today for doing it. Should you want to leave your assets or your legacy to somebody other than a charity, but to like your own family, to your legacy, then oftentimes people get, sometimes the CRATs and the CRUTs or CRTs in general are oversold and almost abusively sold to people that it's not appropriate to sell it to them under the guise of tax savings. Now, they definitely serve their place. And if somebody is up there in age and they don't have a family or a legacy, or they choose not to leave it to their family, then a CRAT and a CRUT does very efficiently provide them a tax savings today and allow for them to designate income now to themselves or to somebody else, like a second spouse or something of that nature, right? For a period of time until that person's death or a number of years, and then it can kind of be sent off to the charity. And a lot of times they use the asset for income purposes, and then the bulk majority, up to 100 or down to 70% of the bulk majority of the asset, then gets distributed to the charity. For most of our clients on the DST, it's individuals who have a different set of goals. They may also be charitably inclined, but they're wanting to reinvest because this is a business trust. Now, some clients just want to sell off into the sunset and retire and use this to control the amount of taxable income they receive every year. And it works for that too, because in essence, the business purpose is still reinvesting in marketable securities or other instruments to accomplish that income goal. But by and large, we have a number of clients who want to reinvest in real estate, who want to help and support other companies, who want to, hand out, when I say hand out, high interest loans so that they're continually growing this asset. And it's an appropriate cause because they're producing more jobs, they're increasing the cash flow and the transfers in the market and the economy, and they're
helping the community.
They're helping the community. Exactly. And the way this business trust is set up, they're allowed to do that until they take it for something personal. And then at that point in time, it's just a K-1 distribution. They pay as taxes went in or were deferred going in, they then pay those taxes coming out.
It's very interesting because right now, Brent and I are talking to somebody that is in a situation in regards to like community. They have a business that they want to help the community, the art community. And so she is looking for some sort of donors of like $3 million. So I've never heard of the charitable. We haven't gotten that far yet, so I hadn't heard of that. So I appreciate that information.
Absolutely. There are a number of charitable tax saving strategies or tax deferral strategies, or it's not necessarily the correct way to say tax elimination or anything like that. It almost sounds like avoidance, right? But there's a number of different things that the government has provided because of how charities take care of the communities and everything else. And as an incentive to high income individuals and business owners, there's a lot of different things, not just the CRTs, but there's other things out there as well. We assisted a client in California who had some inventory that they could not use, and he received a deduction by donating that inventory to a nonprofit in Colorado that then turned that material into masks for a variety of medical clinics. And so anyway, there's a lot of things out there that are available, and sometimes it makes sense to utilize the trust in conjunction with these other strategies to have an overall better outcome for our clients. Again, the magical thing that I always tell people about the trust is it gives you power over timing. And should you want to take a taxable transaction, a K-1 distribution in a certain year, there might be some of these charitable strategies or an oil and gas strategy or some of these other tax mitigating strategies that you can incorporate in conjunction with the charitable, with the Deferred Sales Trust as the primary tool.
Thank you so much, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
Again, we just try to help people solve, or we help, I won't call them problems, because they have goals that they're wanting to accomplish. We help provide solutions that enable them to accomplish their goals in a more tax efficient way.
You guys are the bridge builders. Like, these people are on an island with all this cash that they don't want to take out because they're afraid they're going to get taxed. And then there's the government, and you guys are the bridge builders.
I like that.
Thanks.
I could be a bridge builder.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I, to that point, I think what the biggest value is like with this whole mastermind is just getting that type of information. But also when you start doing and working with us, you get that team. That team is critical, right? Like you got Brett and you got Jake, who are just amazing at their craft. And then you get Todd and you get people like David Young, and you surround yourself with these people that are just amazing people, and they are able to provide solutions and ideas and just different ways of thinking about things, perspective that you wouldn't get with your ordinary. And I'm not saying anyone's ordinary or whatever, right? But there's tiers, right? And when you start playing with people that are in the higher tiers, especially if you start getting up there, like you have to have the knowledge and the skill set and the team that can, play. Like, someone who's playing in the minor leagues versus someone who's playing in the major leagues they're not, one's not necessarily a better person or whatever, but one's definitely got more skills and the others that can provide more things. And so you want to surround yourself with those people that can bring you up in those tiers and start playing in those bigger leagues. And I think that's what one of the main things that we bring is we bring that team that can build everyone up. Like a rising tide raises all ships. And so, get those team members that are around you that can bring you up, and it's an amazing thing what can start happening.
The nice thing about this mastermind is we're all professionals in we have different business entities. Like none of us actually are like tied to each other contractually or anything like that, but we're all here sharing really good information so that, Leah, the clients that you have and the situations that they're going through, all of us can learn from that. And the same with you, Rebecca. I mean, different geographic area, different situations. But at the end of the day, we might have a client like that later on that because of you and your clients now, we're able to serve everyone better. So also, let's see, David, our world traveler. I'm just kind of curious, where are you calling in from today? Did you say New York? See if he's able to pop back on. He might be driving in a tunnel if he's in New York, right? Anyway, Pierce, I think we're coming up on the end of today's show.
Yeah.
If people want to get in touch with Brett Swarts, what do they got to do?
Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com.
capitalgainstaxsolutions.com.
You usually find him on this mastermind too. He just had a leadership conference that he had to go to make himself a little bit better today. So
leadership conference that sometimes he as a leader speaks during these conferences. So you might even catch a little man on the street action later today or tomorrow as he's walking about talking about the leadership conference. As well as if people want to reach out to me. So Brett Swarts, his website's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. My website is strategictaxsolutions.com. Helping clients be more efficient so that their dollars can go a little farther prior to that day that they really have to end up paying taxes on everything that they have made, right? So it comes down to everything that we can do with our dollars today versus what we need to eventually pay to the government down the road. I also have a 1-800 number, 1-800-773-1848. And of course, just so that everybody's aware, as a common disclosure, securities offerings, should we help people on the security side of things for investments, are through Alphi RIA. All right. I think that's everything for today, Pierce. Where can people find us should they want to attend next week?
You can find us on the Capital Gains Tax Solutions website. You can register for this mastermind. And I have all of the people that I'm invited. I'm sure Brett does too, on a reoccurring meeting. So you guys can click in your Google link and join back up here. And next week will be smoother, probably because Brett will do it. But
I think it's good that people can see that we're real people, Pierce. If
you guys did an amazing job. You guys did great today.
That's awesome.
You guys did good. It was great.
This is recorded. I'm cutting that one piece and I'm just sending it to Brett.
Oh, buddy. Well, very good.
So thanks for the encouragement. Appreciate it.
Technically, I'm going to say that we're done, and this last piece is going to be chopped from the recording. But any questions for next week? Anything that we didn't go over today? Or if there are questions that are unrelated to the Deferred Sales Trust, but are about taxes and financial products in nature, you can definitely reach out to my team, as well as to a few people that are here. Shane Kelly and Brian and Brennan Newton are members of my investment team. So go ahead,
A
Leah.
quick question. I heard, and again, this is all new. I said I'm an infant in all this, but 1033, 1031, and then tax deferment. Maybe if you guys can do something next week, kind of versus.
Okay, 1031, 1033, or you're talking about the life insurance 1035?
Oh, 1035. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, more than happy to touch on that. We can probably do that in 2 to 5
Next week.
minutes. Mhm.
Yeah. Whenever. You ask for ideas for another show. If you guys ever want to do like, versus, and it kind of, so I can kind of understand a little bit more about that. That'd be cool.
And it's very similar tax code. It just talks about the rollover that includes basis, appreciation, and cash value. More than happy to go over that next week. Just you need to be here to bring it up so that we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Sounds good. Cool. All right, you guys. Well, thanks again for coming to the masterclass. And as always, we believe most high net worth individuals and their professional teams struggle to help clarify their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. And using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way to create, preserve, and grow your wealth. So
I like it. That one's a take. That one's a take.
That one's a take, guys. All right. Thanks again. Rate, review, subscribe, and show up next week, guys, when we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Pierce, will you be sure to send me the recording?
I will try.
Throw it over in an email or Google Drive or something.
I gotta figure. It's got to convert and all that, so I'll send it in the Google deal.